Hello world, welcome back to The Charismatic Cannibal. This episode's going to be a little bit different, and then I'm going to talk about what I think about the Institute, the people in it, why I hate the Institute, and why I think it's the evil faction. The very first thing that makes me think the Institute is the evil bastard faction of Fallout 4 is that they can't be asked to lift a single finger to help the Commonwealth. They could single-handedly revolutionize the life of the entire Commonwealth with the technology and resources at their fingertips. For instance, they could be providing security with their Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths. Farms would no longer ever have to worry about raiders. In fact, having people know that they have the security means they could sleep better at night, and they'll be more productive because of it. No more worrying about, am I going to make it through the night without someone coming to my farm, raiding it, and killing me in my sleep, because they would have security. Even if they didn't use the synths themselves, the Institute clearly has the technology to at least have significantly better equipment for farmers in the Commonwealth. Caravans would never have to worry about raiders destroying their supplies or killing them. They would have better security if they had these Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths, or even if they just had Institute weaponry with their regular mercenaries and probably armor. It would be amazing. Or what about using the Institute's molecular relay to transport goods? No better security than just instantly poofing shit from one place to another. Definitely don't have to worry about any kind of raider or any mercenaries or anybody destroying the caravans. Or even just general settlement security improvements. The Institute easily has the technology to take care of the general security needs of every settlement. They, as far as I could tell, have a bottomless supply of Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths. They have tons of weapons. They have, incredible access to technology. What else does the Institute have? Well, they have that hydroponics lab. I bet they could help farms have better yields. They probably have those resources. They would be able to distribute better technology and tools so that you would need so many people farming the land. I mean, instead of doing everything by hand, they would actually have proper equipment to do all of this faster. It would bring back civilization significantly faster just with the farm improvements alone. And if you have fewer people that need to farm everything, you would have more people available for other professions. What about medical attention? This institute, the Institute has fantastic medical facilities. I mean, just the cleanliness levels of the Institute and having good personal hygiene goes a long way to preventing people from getting sick in the first place. But they have laser scalpels and all this amazing, medical equipment that would significantly improve the life of the average Commonwealth person. And you know what? If the Institute can make Gen 3 synths, which are basically made of organic tissue and are completely indistinguishable from a normal human, they can make limb replacements. Think of all the terrible things that happen to people. It's like someone gets hurt in a raider incident, they lose a leg. Well, now they can get a synthetic limb replacement. Or even possibly one that is made of organic tissue. Maybe even in their own organic tissue. So they're basically be getting a limb that is made from the same cells that are already in their body, so it would significantly reduce the chance of being rejected. Even just a mechanical replacement would be amazing. I mean, someone that would have normally been crippled for life now can walk around and still, be happy and healthy. There's so many things the Institute could be doing for the Commonwealth that they don't. And what does the Institute actually do? Well, they kill innocent people and they replace them with Gen 3 synths. I mean, that's a pretty horrible thing to do. People in the Commonwealth are super paranoid about the Institute grabbing them in the night because it's what happens. People find these Gen 3 synths impersonating their loved ones all the time for no good reason. There's no reason for the Institute to be spying on the average person. Seriously, what are they getting from here? They're just normal people being replaced by synths. It's like a sick lab experiment where they're seeing how long it takes people to realize that their friend or neighbor has been replaced. Even worse, they turn innocent people into super mutants. I mean, how in the hell do you think Virgil turned into a super mutant? Because they were doing experiments and he had the ability to do so. And he left because he felt awful about his role in killing innocent people or turning them into super mutants. I mean, that's a really shitty thing to do to someone. I mean, that's probably what they do with the people they kidnap and replace. They just decide, oh, let's do lab experiments on them. That's absolutely a horrific thing to do to somebody. And synth escapes are so frequent and such a problem that the Institute made an entire bureau specifically for the sole purpose of recapturing them. Gen 3 synths that are basically human beings are treated like slaves. I mean, the Gen 3 synths are self-aware. They understand that they are alive, and they're treated like slave labor. You know who does that? Evil faction. In fact, I don't understand why people didn't think that there wasn't an evil faction, because the Institute is hardcore evil, but maybe it's just because they're doing it at a level of sophistication that's well above and beyond what, your typical Raider faction would do. I mean, they just go in and kill people and blow things up because they're a bunch of drugged up whack jobs with guns. But the Institute kind of does their evil on a whole new level. They basically act as boogeymen. They capture innocent people. They replace them. They keep all of their amazing technology to themselves. They do horrific lab experiments on people. They basically created another human race and then forced them into slavery. One of my favorite characters in Fallout 3 was Dr. Lee. Sure, when you met her, she was kind of really cynical, but she was in the hydroponics lab at Rivet City. That's kind of a bioscience, and that's basically trying to make everyone's life better. There's no money in a hydroponics lab. But there certainly is a lot of gratification in making at least this one city's life a whole lot better with this food. Before that, Dr. Lee was involved in Project Purity, which is an incredibly ambitious project to remove the radiation from the water. And that to me is probably another bioscience thing. I mean, helping people have pure drinking water so they're not, people aren't going to get sick. I mean, that's an incredible thing to do to people. I mean, if you want to help people like that, there's nothing selfish about that. I mean, the only reason she stopped working on Project Purity is because James left, and it kind of screwed the whole project over, and the super mutants were just attacking too much, and the Brotherhood of Steel was just like, screw you guys. It's kind of like several problems at once. I mean, going to Rivet City was kind of the booby prize for not being able to work on Project Purity. But 20 years later, she's asked to help on Project Purity again, and she jumps at the chance. Sort of. She's pretty cynical because James abandoned the project once and she doesn't have faith in him again, but she still ultimately agrees to work on it and take her people with her. So she still does care, despite her cynical nature, about helping people. 10 years later, we get to Fallout 4. And Dr. Lee isn't in the bioscience lab. She isn't doing anything in the hydroponics lab. She's working on incredibly advanced AI and somehow magically knows in-depth child psychology. After 10 years. That is batshit crazy. I mean, that's not even remotely close to what she was doing before. Not only that, is that the project she's working on has nothing to even remotely do with helping people out. She's basically fulfilling the psychotic delusional fantasies of a selfish whack job. That seems totally unlike her. I was just really incredibly disappointed when I saw Dr. Lee in Fallout 4. I cannot imagine her. Like, I can see her maybe going to the Institute and then finding out that these people are a bunch of selfish pricks and then leaving. That I would believe. But I cannot see her staying there for 10 years. Absolutely no way. I mean, Virgil left, so it's obviously possible for people to get out and never come back. There are face rippers in the Commonwealth, so she could have gotten her face changed if she was really that afraid. Honestly, I think she should have been at some place like Diamond City, helping them make their crops, and probably doing a hydroponics lab or something similar there, because that would at least be within her expertise, instead of some weird batshit crazy advanced AI child psychology nonsense that there's no way she could possibly know in 10 years. Yeah, I really don't see this as being something that people study on a regular basis, and that's something you would have to know in order to create that creepy synth Sean. Speaking of synth Sean, his fate is pretty terrible. Basically, Father had him created out of pure selfishness, and I'm guessing because he's a total whack job. So a child's mind has at least a good 15 years of development from the time they're 10 onwards. I mean, the human brain is not fully developed until like between 25 and 30. if they actually were to create Sean's AI to mimic that of a child, they're dooming this kid to never being able to grow as a person. I mean, mental restrictions alone. And that is, he'll also never grow up. The other scientists tell you that Sean's body will never go through puberty. He's never going to grow up. He's never going to have an adult body. He's never going to have an adult brain and an adult body. But you know damn well that there's a pretty good chance that Sean's AI is going to figure out how to evolve on its own and grow like a normal person would. And he's going to be like, why am I stuck in this child's body? Why would anyone do this to me? I mean, making a child synth is a pretty freaking shitty thing to do. Because they're never going to grow up. And even then, his life is a lie. His feelings for his parent is completely bullshit. It's not real. What happens when he figures this out? He's going to be so messed up. He's probably going to have trouble with reality. He could go batshit crazy and kill people for all we know because he might not think anything's real anymore. Or he might even take it out on the person that's supposed to be his parents. Like, how could you do this to me? Wouldn't that be a crappy thing to do if someone forced you to feel a certain way and there was nothing you can do about it and then suddenly you knew that it was a lie? I mean, that's the kind of thing that would make most people question themselves, and I don't think that Sean would be any different, that since Sean would be any different. I mean, because we know that Gen 3 synths are essentially people, because that's how crazy sophisticated their AI is, that they have the ability to learn things, that they know that they're people and they're self-aware. I mean, why would you even think that was a good idea to ever inflict those possibilities onto somebody? That's an awful thing to do. That's the kind of thing that's straight up villainy. Or just, like, complete insanity. And, like, Dr. Lee goes along with it. That's what really kills me. She's doing something that she has to know has these horrific potential consequences. Because it's only a matter of time before Synth Sean figures out that this whack job had him build and sentenced him to a fate that he never asked for. The Institute kind of has a destructive cult thing going for it. Not completely. They are missing some, key things that they... Father isn't exactly a sociopath. He's kind of just like a cult victim himself. I mean, he was there basically his entire life. Every memory he has should be of the Institute, because I don't believe a child's mind is even developed enough before 3 or 4 years old, and he was just a baby when he was taken, so he shouldn't remember anything before the Institute. They don't make it easy for anyone to leave. Once you're in the Institute, you do not leave. I mean, Virgil did leave, but he went to extreme lengths to get out. He turned himself into a super mutant. He went out into the glowing sea, which is incredibly dangerous with death claws and the rad scorpions everywhere. Plus, it's extremely heavily radiated, which is why he had to turn himself into a super mutant. He's in a cave with security bots and turrets everywhere. And he's still deathly afraid of a courser showing up and shooting him in the face. So they don't make it easy to leave. Everyone dresses basically exactly the same except for a little bit of color showing the area they work in. So that alone is a way to prevent people from being individuals so that they all feel like they're the same, so they all end up with the same goals, which is essentially to better the Institute and to create better technology. And that's the only thing they're concerned about. I mean, they obviously don't send anyone else to help with the rest of the Commonwealth ever. So they don't really encourage people to be individuals. They basically encourage them all to be the same and have the same goals. The people that work in the Institute have to realize that weird shit's going on. When you have these Gen 3 synths that were there and then they're suddenly not, that seems kind of hinky. I mean, they're kidnapping innocent people from the wastelands. Surely someone had to have seen these innocent people, and they were getting innocent people for their super mutant program to experiment on them, and someone had to have seen that. But yet no one really says anything. I mean, when you're in the Institute, everyone's blowing smoke up your ass about how great it is to be there and how fantastic the Institute is and all this other bullshit. It's like you have to be in some incredible denial or really making a lot of excuses up for your cult, your destructive cult, to be able to ignore the horrific things that people had to have seen. Someone saw something at some point. The thing I hate the most, or the ultimate reason why I hate the Institute, is that it seems like they didn't develop it in any one particular way. It's like they tried to do several things with the Institute, but none of them ended up turning out very well. For instance, it seems like the intention was that the Institute was morally ambiguous. Like, sometimes they would do some good things and sometimes they would do some bad things. Except the Institute doesn't actually do anything that's good for anybody, except maybe themselves. And that's generally not considered a trait that's beneficial to anybody except being a selfish asshole. I mean, kidnapping innocent people and replacing them with synths, that's not a good thing. kidnapping innocent people and experimenting on them to turn them into super mutants, that's not a good thing. Being a bunch of selfish dicks and not helping people when you have the more than capable of doing so, that's not a good thing. Or what about the slogan, Mankind Redefined? But their biggest project is for the Gen 3s. Gen 3s aren't considered human, they're considered tools. That's not Mankind Redefined, that's we're building robots that are aesthetically pleasing to do our housework. That's all that Gen 3 synths are to the Institute. Machines to do crappy jobs that no one else wants to do. They're not considered human, they're certainly not considered a member of mankind. How can you say Mankind Redefined when you're not doing anything for mankind to redefine them? Now what they did to Kellogg, the cybernetic implants, that is Mankind Redefined. But that project was canceled because Father said he didn't like it or some other dumb bullshit. So that doesn't even make sense. There's no moral ambiguity, there's no Mankind Redefined, and the Institute doesn't even do evil very well. It's not terribly exciting. Throughout the Commonwealth, you're told that the Institute is the boogeyman of the Commonwealth. But it doesn't really feel like that. It doesn't feel like they're doing anything terribly insidious except for, well, they're kidnapping Farmer Bob and replacing him with a Gen 3 synth. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Like, who gives a crap if some random nobody is a Gen 3 synth? I mean, obviously, for the people who lost a loved one, they would care, but for the Institute, there's no benefit to them. They don't care about the Commonwealth at all. They have shown zero interest in helping the Commonwealth, so why would they even waste their time going to the surface and doing anything? I could see them going to the surface and kidnapping people for the super mutant experiments, or for any other creepy experiments they want to do. Sure, they're a bunch of psycho doctors and scientists. Yeah, maybe they do want to experiment on people. That would make sense, but they're just replacing random people with Gen 3 synths for no reason. I mean, there's not even a reason for them to make the Gen 3 synths. Or at least not to replace anybody with them. It's like, well, they made them to be machines to do work. Why would they need to replace anybody? What is the point? And I don't really think any of those questions were answered. So the Institute kind of doesn't do a very good job of actually being evil. Even the cult aspect, I don't think, is done very well. I mean, an actual destructive cult, I don't think they would allow people to be lippy. But when you talk to a lot of the named people, some of them get complaining and stuff. I mean, they have the whole isolation part where they keep themselves away from the rest of the Commonwealth. And then they have the clothing where everyone looks the same so that individuality isn't promoted. But then everyone still has a personality of their own, and sometimes they could be snippy with each other, which I don't think that would be allowed in a destructive cult. So, I don't know, it doesn't do that very well either. Or then they don't really have a strong leader for it either. Father seems like some nut job that took his name way too seriously. He doesn't seem to be particularly useful or do anything exciting or special. He just doesn't seem to have a whole lot of character development, period. I mean, outside of he's like some whack job that wants to relive his childhood through this synthetic robot thing, which doesn't make sense either, because Father seems to think that the synthetics aren't considered human. So why would he be making this child to emulate himself when he doesn't even consider the synthetics to be human? Why would he make this child that's supposed to replace him and be a version of him for his parent when he finally meets them? I don't know, it just does not make sense. I mean, outside of, he's just some random whack job. But he doesn't really play the part of a crazy, unstable person either.